Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This is the next video in the series JUZ Gems, and this is over JUZ 14. This JUZ seems kind of long. It consists of Surah Hijr and Surah Nahl, which is the B. And so, like I said, read the notes, but please read the JUZ because it's really hard to make these notes small enough for people to read, and the videos short enough for people to actually listen to. And of course, reading the Quran is way better. From verses 1 through 5, it starts off with Alif Lam Ra, and then it goes on from verses 6 to 15 to say that they call Muhammad a madman and ask him to send down angels if he really was the truth, but this would not have helped. They continue to disbelieve, although they have the example of the past. And then from verses 16 through 23, Allah has given us many things such as the stars, the mountains, the winds, the rain. And so we also have to remember that Allah is the one who gives us life and death amongst all these other things that Allah does give us. And Allah is the true inheritor. And so truly we own nothing. And then from verses 24 through 50, it speaks of how Allah created man from clay of altered black smooth mud, and that the jinns were created from smokeless fire. And then it says that when Allah created Adam and gave him his soul, he told the angels to bow down. And of course we know all the angels bowed down except Iblis. And Iblis refused to bow down because he said that Adam was made of clay. And so Allah cast him out and gave him respite until the day of judgment. And Iblis promised to misguide all those except those who are guided. But we have to remember that Iblis does not have any kind of authority over us, and that he only has authority of those who are not believers. And so and for those who he does have authority of, hell is their promised place, and for the believers, paradise is promised. And so then it goes on to say that from verses 51 through 75 that about the angels who came to Abraham. This was discussed in Juz 12, I believe, and I think that I said messengers, but when I said messengers, meaning angels. And this is when the angels came down, they gave glad tidings of the Son, and they told Abraham about the people of Lut. And so then to go on from verses 76 through 84, it talks about these people of the past and how they're assigned for us, and everything that they earned did not avail them, it did not help them. And so then on to verses 85 through 99, which is the end of the surah, it talks about how Allah has given us the 7 oft repeated verses, which is Al-Fatiha, and Muhammad was sent as a plain warner. And those who disbelieve will definitely be called into account for all that they used to do. And so as Muslims, we need to proclaim openly what Allah has commanded, turn away from the bad, and remember that Allah is sufficient. Allah knows the actions of the disbelievers and how they bother us, but glorify and worship Allah until there comes an hour that is certain, and that which is certain is death. And then we go on to I can't find the page. And then we go on to the next surah, which is the B, Surah Nahl. And it starts off, of course, by reminding us of all the favors Allah gave us. Allah gave us angels. Allah gave us the creation of us. Allah gave us cattle, water, and Allah created different colors in animals. So will we not remember what Allah has given us? And if we even tried to count the blessings that Allah has given us, we would not be able to. And honestly, just sit down and try to count everything that you have. You really would just be lost in the amount of blessings that Allah has given us. And this is verses 1 through 18. And then it goes on from verses 19 through 34 to talk about how Allah knows everything that is concealed and revealed. And Allah is above all that He created, which is what the disbelievers invoke. And so the disbelievers prey on what Allah has created, but Allah is most definitely above His creation. And they will bear the burden of what they worshipped on the day of judgment, and they would also bear the burden of those who they misled. And then from verses 35 through 44, Allah talks about how to every ummah was sent a messenger telling its people to worship Allah, to avoid false deities, and of course some were guided and some were not. And if Allah intends anything, all Allah has to say is be, and it is, kum fayakum, and it is. And then from verses 45 through 57, Allah talks about how he's created everything in order that they prostrate to him and fear him. And Allah is one, and everything belongs to Allah, between the heavens and the earth, ins and outs, everything. And all good is from Allah. And when harm touches you, Allah tells you to call to him. But some people, when they do call to Allah and it is removed, they continue on their merry little way. So you're going through a hard time, you call to Allah, and then, oh, and then it's removed, and then all of a sudden you stop praying. All of a sudden you just forget that Allah helped you in the beginning, when Allah is the only one who can help you, and Allah did help you. And so then on to verses 58 through 64, Allah talks about how back then when a daughter was born, they would be like gloom would overtake them, and then of course they would then bury their daughters. This is important to remember because people talk about how, why do these countries treat women bad, blah 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 blah. If we go back in their history, it's in their history that they treat women bad. So is it really that surprising that they still do? And just because they do does not mean that Islam said that Islam coincides with what they do. Just because somebody says they're Muslim and they do something doesn't mean that everything they do is a part of Islam. And it seems like Islam is the only religion. If I say I'm Muslim and I go and I just start killing little babies or something, all of a sudden people say Islam says to kill babies. But this isn't the case. Like if a Christian goes and blows up, I don't know, blows up a park, no one says, oh, Christianity says to blow up parks. And so we need to make sure, well, not we, they need to make sure that when they're accusing things to be Islam, that they actually know what they're talking about, because obviously they don't. And then again, within these verses 58 through 64, Allah talks about how if he actually punished people for the things that they did, like if Allah were to seize mankind for their wrongdoing, there wouldn't be a single creature on this earth. And so we have to remember that Allah is al-muhahid. Oh my god, I said that wrong. Al-muhahid. Allah is the delayer. This is the name of Allah, so Allah delays. So Allah doesn't punish people immediately. I mean, look at the story of Pharaoh. Pharaoh disbelieved, said he was God. Allah didn't immediately, bam, and like wipe him out. Allah gives you respite, and Allah gives you time to believe. This is a mercy from Allah. And then from verses 65 through 89, Allah talks about how he sends signs for those who listen, those who have wisdom, and those who think. And Allah is not similar to any of his creation. And then we also have to remember that the disbelievers, they recognize Allah's grace, but they turn away. And we have to remember that we have to remember the day that there will be witnesses from amongst the people, and there will be witnesses raised from amongst each nation, and those who did wrong will see their wrong, and of course they will see they're wrong. And we have to remember that the Quran will also be a witness against us and what we used to do. And then from verses 90 through 110, it talks about how Allah likes justice, Allah likes patience in performing duties to him, Allah likes those who are nice to their kin, Allah likes those who forbids evil deeds, who stick with what is prohibited, and who dislike oppression. And those who are righteous will receive, of course, a righteous reward. And we have to remember that when the Quran is recited, we have to seek refuge with Allah from the shaitan, and that Allah's power is only for those who obey and follow him. And so then it goes on this is the last chunk of the surah, from verses 111 through 119. It says to remember the day when every person will come pleading for themselves, and and to remember that the people before, the people of the towns, those people were a lesson to all of us. Remember, they did, well, this isn't the last chunk. This is from verses 111 through 119. Remember what they did. They were given the message. They disbelieved the message. Allah gave them time. They were destroyed. End of story. And then we have to make sure we don't fall into this. And so then and then Allah ends this chunk from 111 to 119 to say that those who do wrong and then repent to Allah, Allah is most forgiving. And then now is the end of the surah from 120 to 128. It talks about Abraham and how Abraham was his own ummah, and he was obedient to Allah, he was thankful to Allah, and he was Allah's best friend. Now, the way that I've heard this explained, I wonder if you can see my fingers, is that when the words describing about best friend, he was like this with Allah. He was like intertwined fingers with Allah. He was right there with Allah. He was Allah's man, Allah's, those words for best friend, Allah's companion, Allah's top dog. Allah's, well, not top, you know what I mean. It's a phrase. And so then we have to remember that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he followed the religion of Abraham, and he invited people to the way of Allah. We have to remember that patience is better for the believers, and that patience is actually from Allah, and Allah is only with those who fear Him and keep duty to Him. And this is where the surah ends. I hope that this video helped. Inshallah, we can be best friends with Allah. Well, not like Abraham, alayhi salam, but inshallah, I hope everyone's having a blessed Ramadan. Oh my gosh, it's like almost over pretty much. But inshallah, please pray for all those who aren't on TV and still going through something. And assalamu alaikum.